Okay, it is actually now 1:35. We're going to get the Oklahoma Planning Commission meeting going. Okay, notice of this meeting was posted on October 11, 2024. Call to order. Roll call, Eric?
Yes, the members of the planning commission are Mr. Rob Murray, Mr. Charles DeFuria, Mr. Rob Talbot,
Here.
and Ms. Denise Patterson.
Okay, approval of minutes from previous meeting, September 19th. Everybody got a copy of the minutes. Is there any questions or amendments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve.
Roll call.
Mr. Murray, Mr. DeFuria,
I'll have to abstain because I wasn't at the meeting.
Mr. Talbot,
Well, we can just wait on that too and move to item number.
okay, we can do that.
Yeah.
Just move it towards the end, that's
Toward
fine.
the end. Do that, and, okay, item number 5, we're going to move that to the end of our agenda. And can I have a motion to approve moving item number 5 to the end of, do we need to have a motion to move it? Okay, we just move it, so let's go to item number 6. Discussion and possible action to approve / deny the general plat of Council Plains CP 2024-14. And if I understand correctly, item 7 is a companion item.
That is correct.
So we will hear and discuss item number 7, and we will vote on them separately after all discussion.
Sure.
Okay. Eric?
So item 6 and 7 is describing the property you see here on the screen. It is located at the intersection of Northwest 234th and Council Road on the northwest side of that intersection. And so what the property owner is proposing in these two items is to create 7 lots out of approximately 44 acres. Each lot is going to be about 5 acres in size. The way the property is currently zoned is R2, which is rural residential. And that's really it. Pretty straightforward of what he's wanting to do. Just create those 7 lots, each 5.5 acres. And that's what item 6 and 7 consist of.
Any questions for Eric? Is there anyone here who'd like to talk in favor of this project? You state your name and address, please.
Charles Allen with Hale and Associates, 1601 Southwest 89th Street, representing the applicant. It's pretty straightforward, as Eric said. We've got 5 at 5.5 and 2 at 6.5 acres. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else in talk in favor of this project? Hearing none, is there anyone here who would like to talk against this project? Hearing and seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve item number 6, discussion and possible action to approve / deny the general plat of Council Plains CP 2024-14.
Second.
Roll call, Eric?
Mr. Murray, Mr. DeFuria,
Yes.
Mr. Talbot,
Yes.
and Ms. Patterson.
Okay, item number 7, I'll entertain a motion to approve / deny the discussion and possible action to approve / deny the final plat of Council Plains FP 2024-10.
Second.
Roll call, Eric?
Mr. Murray, Mr. DeFuria,
Yes.
Mr. Talbot,
Yes.
and Ms. Patterson.
Okay, items 6 and 7 are approved. Item number 8 is the discussion and possible action to approve / deny the general plat of Hawkins Ridge GP 2024-13. Eric?
Yes, this item was originally before the planning commission a few months ago, and it was actually withdrawn. They were going to rezone the property from R2 to R1, and that application was withdrawn. So they've come back at this point, sticking with R2 zoning. And so this is the general plat, the first step in the platting process that you see before you. All the lots that you see there are 2 acres in size or a little bit larger. You have a total of 13 lots. They're going to make up the subdivision on approximately 30 acres. The subdivision itself is located off of Memorial Road, west of Triple X, maybe a quarter mile, give or take, on the north side. I can hand out a couple plats so you can get a better idea of what everything looks like. Let me do that first. So you can see pretty straightforward what you have there. On the east side, you have a little retention area, if you will. Then on the northwest side, you have one as well to help facilitate the county's drainage requirements when we get to the preliminary plat stage, if this is approved. There was one letter of protest that I had received just on Tuesday, and I actually received a phone call from the property owner to directly west of the development. I wouldn't say her concern is not so much a protest. She just had a few requests. I assume she's here, but she had a few requests. I think she was going to actually contact the owner of the property and possibly the engineer. So I'll let her speak to those requests, but I will provide you this letter of protest that I have here.
So I see the two retaining bodies, right, within the pond.
Mhm.
What's that, on lot 4, 5, and 6?
So it's basically, and the engineer can speak to this, but I assume that's kind of like a trickle channel that goes back towards the pond. So it collects the water, trickles back towards the pond, basically slows the runoff rate to the pond and then ultimately off the property. Basically, the county's subdivision regulations as far as runoff post-development. So with all the houses, asphalt, everything that's going to be there, the runoff conditions at that point have to meet pre-development as the property stands today.
Any other questions for Eric? Does anyone here like to talk in favor of this project? Name and address.
Good afternoon. Kendall Dillon with Crafts and Toll, 300 Point Parkway Boulevard, representing the applicant today. And I think Eric already gave you a hard copy, but again, you can see it on the board. Pretty simple, straightforward application. Again, not that it matters in regards to the fact that it's already zoned, but it's in conformance with the comp plan. It certainly is in conformance. It's currently zoned R2. And we meet every condition in your subdivision regulation. So this plat that you see today conforms to the comp plan, conforms to the zoning ordinance, and conforms to all the subdivision regulations. So it's really straightforward. Again, Eric, here's Ms. Patterson, you mentioned those two bodies that show up on that preliminary plat. This is a preliminary drainage report. You can see there's the two detention facilities, but those lines are in essence interceptor channels to make sure that we can capture the water, get it back to the detention facilities, and detain it before it's released. So everything about this project meets your code, and certainly would ask for your approval.
Questions? Thank you. Anybody else to talk in favor of this project? Hearing and seeing none, is there anyone here who'd like to talk against this project? If you come up and state your name and address, please.
Hi, my name's Carly McIntyre, and I live at 17645 East Memorial Road in Luther, Oklahoma. I own the property directly to the west of Hawkins Ridge Development. We have a shared property line. My east property line is their west property line, and my house is about equal with about property or lot 4. And we have a few concerns. My husband was unable to be here today because he's out of town for work. Our first concern is that currently the property line is drawn on top of our driveway entrance. So I would like to know exactly where that property line is. We have seen a stake out there from the survey, but in this drawing it is drawn on top of our driveway. So that's my first concern and how that's going to be handled. Second, also due to the property line, we in about property line or lot 4 in back, we actually drive down that property line to access our back pasture for livestock, and we would no longer have access there unless granted some type of easement. When we purchased our home, we were told that that was part of our property, so this was definitely very concerning when we saw these property lines drawn, and it's taken part of our back pasture area that we currently use for livestock. There was a fence when we purchased the property that was there. We've been there for 12 years. It was there before we ever purchased the property. It was taken down due to a grass fire, and firefighters had to come through and cut the fence, so we removed it and are in the process of replacing that, but have stopped due to the questions with the property line. And then also, we have concerns about this really changing the appraisable value and the aesthetic value of our property. Basically, it looks really heavily wooded on our side of the fence in line with property or the lots 1, 2, 3, 4. On our side of the property line, all of the underbrush has been cleared and the trees are really limbed up. On the Hawkins Ridge side of the property line, the underbrush remains and it's very wooded. So if the development happens and that is cleared, either by the developer, the builders, the future homeowners, we would basically be like right up and down from 6 houses. We purchased our property because of the rural feel, because we wanted to raise our 3 daughters on an acreage that was private. We're very tucked back from the road. And this would just completely change the feel of our property, having a neighborhood right here. Most of the landowners in the area hold a minimum of 20 acres of land. We have one of the smaller properties of 10 acres. There's a few 5-acre lots next to us, and there's only one neighborhood in the area that has minimum 5-acre lots. This has 2 acres, so it's much more compact development than what's in the area already. But we would ask that you all or the developers would consider allowing some type of natural easement or buffer between us so that we can maintain that rural feel of our property throughout that our east property line and the Hawkins Ridge west property line. That would be our main concerns.
Any questions?
Yeah, so, so your property, is from Memorial Road, is that?
Yes.
And then how far, north does it go?
The length of our property is the same length as the Hawkins Ridge development. So you can see our north property line is the same as their north property line. So we span the whole length of that.
So you say there was a fence there for 12 years?
A minimum of 12 years. Well, about 11 and a half of the 12 years that we've been there, and it was there before we purchased the property, but it had to be removed due to the firefighters cutting it, and it was old and needed to be replaced.
Were there any existing surveyor pins along that?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, that was not something that we had ever checked for, and a lot of that is kind of wooded, so we haven't seen any. No. And we've seen the stakes with the flags on them where we assume the Hawkins Ridge development had a survey done.
So now on that west side, you say is there a driveway there?
There's not a driveway. We actually have a gravel driveway up to our house, and then it's kind of hard to explain, but you can kind of see where our driveway terminates near lot 4, and then we actually head directly west, and then would drive down that basically where that property line is to access our back pasture. Right, that's where our house is. So Yes. So it's part of lot 1, and then when you get up to where lot 4 is, that's where our house is, and you can kind of see the clearing where our driveway goes. And then we kind of would head directly west to, and then back north, right where the property line's drawn to access our back pasture.
So have you talked to the developer about your driveway?
I talked to the developer briefly yesterday, and he had just landed on a flight in Dallas and was in the airport, and so the conversation was really brief. He did seem that he was not opposed to having some type of buffer. He wasn't sure how that would be addressed. He didn't think an easement would be approved. I told him that I had chatted yesterday with the planning commission, and that would be something that could possibly happen. So he said that he would talk to the engineers about that. We never made it to the conversation about the driveway, and he had to get off the phone. So no, I don't have any answers about that.
The land that is gonna be cut off from there, is there any other way to get access?
We have a small fenced yard around our home, and so we would need to like remove some of that fencing and then probably access that way, or we'd have to do some major tree clearing. Basically, why we drive that way is because it's the most direct route off of our main driveway to get back to the back, and it was already, there's a trail that's cleared there, and we have kind of a dirt road that goes to that back pasture.
Do we have any kind of an aerial view of that, Eric? Oh, this is for Eric. Question for Eric. Is there any kind of an aerial view or is that the best we can look at?
Yeah, that's the best that we have right now. I know it's kind of fuzzy in that area there, but that's what we have right now. Yeah, really everything that's part of the plat obviously is empty at this point. Her house, if you can kind of see it there, there's a group of trees. If you come directly west off of lot 4, there's a small pocket of trees, and then there's her house that sits there. So it is a little bit difficult to see in that photo there. For whatever reason, that area is kind of fuzzy.
Would you like me to come up there and point that out?
So these are trees. There's trees here.
Yes. I don't know if I can.
Any other questions?
I pulled it up on Google Earth if you'd like a better view.
Oh, right.
Right. Yeah. So, I, so, no, thanks. I got a question, and maybe it's for you, Miles, or I don't know. Basically, forget the development, right? If somebody owned this 10 acres, if they came in and they put a fence and they put everything around, and then it affected the driveway, that has nothing to do with us. I mean, I don't mean to sound cold, but
Well, that's a legal issue, and Lisa, I think you would probably agree with me that that's going to be a civil issue in between the two property owners and not between us. And that's what surveyors have bonds for, and that's what you have title insurance for, and all sorts of other things. So
I
Um,
do just, go ahead.
Go ahead, Eric.
I was just gonna say, as far as this particular phase in regards to just the driveway issue, remember that this drawing that we have here was not produced by the engineer, it was produced by us. So there may be some scale issues on there to where that driveway is not actually on lot one. So one, keep that in mind. Two, their engineer is gonna have to do the preliminary plat to move forward. If it truly is an issue, they're gonna have to deal with that issue at that point in time.
Right.
Because they're gonna have to bring those plans to us as far as the engineering and everything to review.
Right.
So I think the driveway issue can be handled as we move forward. Now, as far as her other issues, as far as the trees and fence, like I said, that's beyond what we do.
Right.
But if the engineer would like to speak to that, or if they want to have conversations with the applicant, and as we move forward, deal with those. Absolutely.
sure. But at this point, we are not gonna resolve the driveway, nor is that our responsibility to resolve that issue either.
Correct.
That's
Correct.
okay. Okay, I just wanted to clarify. Okay. So, any other questions?
So you didn't complete your conversation with the applicant, is that right?
I probably still have a few more questions, for him, yes.
So, so who's the representative who's here?
Well,
Okay.
let's,
Oh,
well, hold on.
Ken, okay, oh,
Let's finish with her, and then we're
Okay,
gonna bring
all right.
him back up. Any other questions for
no,
her?
not for me.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
To us, sure.
Yes. Is it a possibility to create some type of easement or like natural buffer between us? Is that something that,
That's not something that we can dictate, no.
okay.
Right, yeah. Okay. So, anybody else here who'd like to talk against this project? Okay, hearing and seeing none, would you mind coming back up and state your name and address again, please?
Again, for the record, Kendall Dillon with Crafton Tall, 300 Point Parkway Boulevard, just to make sure you got it.
Thank you.
And
I don't wanna have to come back in a month and redo the whole meeting because we didn't ask.
because you didn't ask me, okay. All right. Just a couple points. Certainly, I know my client spoke with Ms. McIntyre. We'll continue that conversation. Certainly, we want to be good neighbors. We always try to do that. We don't have any intention of cutting anybody's driveway off or anything like that. Now, from a legality standpoint, where are we at today? Certainly, I think Eric's right. That aerial is just an overlay. I don't think that property, I think it's just off the property line. But in regards to the other issues with accessing the back and some of those sort of things, that's a civil matter between two adjacent property owners. If you look at this application, does it comply with the zoning? Does it comply with the subdivision regulations? And the answer on this one is emphatically yes. It meets all the criteria. We're not asking for any variances. We will certainly work with Ms. McIntyre to try to do whatever we can do to be good neighbors and to cooperate and to help as much as we can alleviate her concerns. So we'll do that. Again, as Eric mentioned, this is the general plat. We're still going to move forward with the preliminary plat and construction plan. So we'll even have more survey and more detailed then. But in regards to this application, it conforms your code, and I would certainly ask for your approval.
We're not requiring, but we would request that you make an effort to talk with her.
Certainly.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'll give her my contact and be happy to.
Awesome. Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, hearing that, and okay, now excuse me, I'll entertain a motion to approve slash deny the possible, excuse me, discussion and got myself confused. I'll entertain a motion to approve item number 8 or deny item number
Motion to approve number 8, Hawkins Ridge.
8. Okay, second, roll call, Eric?
Mr. Murray, Mr. DeFuria,
Yes.
Mr. Talbot,
Yes.
Ms. Patterson,
Yes.
and Commissioner Davidson.
Okay. Item number 9, discussion of possible action to approve slash deny the general plat of Village Bellagio Phase 2, northwest portion, GP 2024-15. Eric?
Yes, so this item was in front of the Planning Commission a few months ago. It was a combination of this northeast part and a combination of the south part of the development. This is a continuation of Bellagio that's located off of Northwest 220th in Portland. It's west of Portland on the south side of 220th. Previously, the concern when these two separate tracks were combined, it was denied by the Planning Commission because of the floodplain that you see here. So they did separate those. The Planning Commission has approved the south portion of the development that's off the screen here. So they brought this application separately because of the floodplain issues. And so I don't know if I made it clear in the previous meetings, but I want to make sure that as the discussion moves forward, just the processes that they're going to have to go through moving forward. So if this item is approved today, obviously the floodplain is a major concern, but the general plat is before you is just a design of what they potentially are going to build there. What they're going to have to do next is they're going to have to do a flood study to determine what techniques they can use to deal with the floodplain that you see there on the screen. Whatever they desire to do, they are going to have to go through FEMA first. They're going to have to do a conditional letter of map revision, which basically they provide FEMA the study of the techniques that they're going to use, basically everything on paper, to demonstrate what everything's going to be once it's constructed. And so FEMA, usually that process, you're looking at about a year, give or take. Once that's approved, then they will notify us, the county. Then we will go to the Floodplain Management Board. Floodplain Management Board will become a formality at that point, but we will give notice to the property owners at that point to let them know that this is what is coming forward as far as what FEMA has approved. And if we're in agreement with that, then we'll move forward with that. Then they would have to do a preliminary plat to do the construction portion of the development itself in regards to the roads and the drainage. At the same time, my assumption would be, and their engineer can correct me if I'm wrong, but my assumption is as they're constructing the subdivision in itself, they would probably do the floodplain improvements, whatever has been approved at that point in time. Now, once the construction of the development and or the floodplain improvements have been done, they will then have to go back to FEMA to do a letter of map revision, which basically states, this is what's on the ground. These are the studies that we've done based on what's actually been built. This is how it compares to what we submitted initially. Then based on that information, they'll either approve or deny the letter of map revision at that point. Then they will be done with FEMA and basically at the same time done with the preliminary plat process, to then they would have to final plat. So I just want to make it clear to not only the Planning Commission, but also folks that are out in the audience, just in case there's any confusion. This is really just an overall design of what they have in mind. There's still a lot more process, if you will, that has to be gone through before any dirt can be turned to build anything. So I just want to keep that in mind as we move forward. Now, I've had several conversations with the folks that are out there in the neighborhood and what their concerns are. And so I do have some letters of protest, and I would like to hand those out now.
So all that to say, even if we approve this, there's other circumstances that could deny this from moving forward.
Right, if they can't get the engineering to work in regards to the floodplain, obviously that would bring the project to a halt. Um, you know, the preliminary plat, we still have oversight on. I mean, obviously, once it's built, then we're past that part, so the final plat, obviously, you would be too late if you would, but really, FEMA is gonna dictate more of this process in regards to the floodplain itself. We're just gonna come back after everything is said and done and approved by them. Sure, we're gonna notify the property owners and let them know what's come out of this study, so they are aware of what is going to be done and what it's gonna look like at the end of the day. But all of that has to be done and approved before anything can be done out there.
Gonna bring up those letters. Does anybody have any questions for Eric?
My only question is, do you have any idea of what this study would entail, or how they would,
So it's a detailed hydraulic analysis. And so whatever they choose to do, a lot of times with these type of developments, when you're in the floodplain, basically what you're doing is you're taking a floodplain that maybe is this wide and you're basically compressing it to this wide is typically what you see. Now there's other techniques that they can use. A lot of times even this board has seen in other cases to where they use compensatory storage, to where they put a big pond out there, if you will, to hold that water and then release it over time. So there's various techniques they can use to accomplish basically removing the floodplain off of the development that you see and basically move it back to the south to where then they can develop this outside of the floodplain, because FEMA would be the one who would approve that study. So maybe the engineer can speak to what potential ideas they have in accomplishing this. I don't know if they've looked at it this far at this point, but there's various techniques that can be used to accomplish that.
okay, basically moving a lot of earth?
Right, moving a lot of earth, either off the property, out of the floodplain altogether. That goes back to the compensatory storage. That's kind of the common thing that you see. You can use, you know, berms, all kinds of different stuff that you can use. So there's a whole wide array. So I don't want to pigeonhole them into anything because I haven't seen anything.
Okay, all right, thanks, Eric.
Any other questions?
So, Eric, correct me if I'm wrong. This in no way, shape, or form is going to be final after a hydraulic study, a clomer and a lomer are submitted. This is likely going to drastically change.
I would assume, I mean, if you're going to the point of doing a clomer, more than likely the design that you have here, they've done some initial study. Obviously, a lot of these lots, or the fringe of some of these lots, are in the 500-year floodplain, which is the orange. And then you have a lot of that area that is in the 100-year floodplain that's in the blue. So basically what you're going to be able to do in this case is push all that back to the south and east, back to the creek itself. But they also have a substantial amount of property that they can work with back to the south that hasn't been developed, that's in the floodplain as well. So there's still quite a bit of property that they can work with that's not displayed on this particular map that helps, you know,
So
with
this-
that process.
This particular developer has a large chunk of the property to the south of this aspect.
He owns the entire section.
Oh, okay.
So that whole square mile, at the end of the day, basically, if I recall correctly, half of that section is probably in the floodplain to some degree or another. So so this development is off of Meridian and 220th. As you move from that intersection of Meridian and 220th and you go back east to the south, you start getting into the floodplain. I mean, I know you're aware that we block off Northwest 220th in Portland there frequently due to flooding because that road is overtopped.
Not anymore.
Okay, not anymore.
We
Okay,
fixed a bunch of
Okay,
The Logan County log jam.
okay, okay. So I mean, that's kind of how you would move forward with that. Now, like I said, I don't know how far they are into their studies and what they're proposing, but there's various things that you can do.
Lot size, is it similar to the current development? It looks to be.
Yes, it's pretty similar in size. I do want to point out one thing that has changed on the picture that you see, and I've updated on the next slide here. The lot in the very southwest corner of the development, if you go back to the previous slide real quick, the initial drawing that we got just showed it as a lot. What they've decided to do, if you go back to the next slide, what you see, they've made that lot a little bit wider, but back to the east, and they've added an easement there. So from my understanding, that easement, there's a park or a field that the neighborhood utilizes as you go back to the south. So this is to allow access along an existing road that's there to get back to that, from my understanding. From my understanding, that was a concern of the property owners that were out there that contact the applicant directly. So they sent that to us this morning.
Any other questions for Eric? Okay, is there anyone here who'd like to talk in favor of this project? Name and address.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant, who is also here with us. So Eric did a really good job of explaining what this is and what this isn't. What this isn't is a zoning case. This land was zoned via a PUD entitled Bellagio Phase 2 back in 2017, 2018. So what you have before you is a plat that is now fully compliant with the zoning that was approved by the Board of County Commissioners, as well as all other development regulations. And as staff said, this is in no way a final approval. This simply allows us to move forward to see what it is we can do. And the drainage analysis that staff referenced is a very expensive analysis. It's a six-figure cost to go do that. So what this says is we have a general plat that conforms to all the regulations that could be asked to be achieved on a developer for this particular piece of property. We're then going to go and through FEMA and through any other regulatory agency, go see what we can actually do. And then we will bring to you the next phase of the plot in which we show you what the results of that drainage study are. But what we have here is a plat that complies with everything that could be required to be complied with by a developer. I don't know what else you could ask of a developer other than complying with the zoning that the county approved and the regulations that the county has enacted. And that's what we have here, as indicated not by me, but by your staff in their staff report. So we're happy to answer any questions. It's a compatible development in terms of lot sizes. It's compatible in terms of subdivision regulations, and it's compatible in terms of zoning. So we would ask for your approval.
This is a curiosity question. How long does all that testing take?
Months, if not a year.
And then,
So you're
Just
probably
bump them out of
talking
there.
about a total, just for the Clomer, typically from what I've seen, which is the beginning study, you're probably looking at a year is typically, and then, like I said, once they actually go build it, they have to file a LOMR, which is typically a year. So they will typically give us an update on this process. They usually contact the community that's affected and the applicants that are a part of it on one email. That way, if there's any communication between them or us, everybody's on the same page. If additional data is needed, or if they have any questions of us, everybody's part of that process.
We'd be years from turning any dirt.
right. Second question was, and it was what Eric brought up, and I do remember this being a major topic, about that park. You know, they talked about how there was a way to get back there. So you are putting an easement in to make that happen for
Yeah.
them.
So
Okay.
what would be the southwest portion there? That was modified and submitted to staff today. So that will be an access easement, and which means we've also lost a lot, but we've done that to create that easement.
I appreciate that.
Uh-huh.
Any other questions?
Eric, this one's more for you. Just to the south, here on your map, not on this one, but on the previous, it appears that there's already housing built within the 500 and 100-year floodplain.
Well, as you go back, so I assume what you're talking about is the portion of Bellagio there.
Yeah, current.
Yeah, so there's houses that back up to that. There's no actual structures in the floodplain. Yeah, there's a lot, right?
Okay.
There's lots that are in the floodplain, but the actual home itself is not. So what you have there is you go kind of south and west, just off the screen, there's actually a pond that's there. Because that floodplain just kind of continues just a little bit more, and then it dips back to the south from there. So if that was a little bit bigger, you even see a pond there that there's no house, but there's no actual homes that are in the floodplain.
Right. So just the more work that is done to this land to reduce the floodplain area only helps those individuals because, I mean, 100-year, 500-year, those are just projections. And that's all they are. We know that they can't get up and out further, so.
Right. I mean, I mean, you know as well as I do that some of the folks that did send me some videos of the flooding that has occurred out there over the years, and I mean, it is substantial.
It is.
And so I agree that the applicant has a big hurdle to get over, just as wide as that floodplain is out there and just the amount of water that we've seen over the years. It's a big task to take on to try to confine that to get it off the property. So it'd be, if this is approved, I guess it'd be interesting to see what actually comes of this.
So, follow up, Mr. Chairman, if you will. We deny this today. What's the next steps for property owner?
So if the planning commission denies it, since it doesn't go to the Board of County Commissioners, then it's not a zoning issue. The
Right.
Board of Adjustment is out of that process. So where you go from here is to court. So the applicant can then sue the county, and we end up in court because this is the end of the administrative process that we have in place.
Lisa, for you, and you've been here as long or longer. Well, I've been here longer than you have. I've never seen the county win one of these.
I never comment or predict litigation. All I can say is litigation is unpredictable.
So, answer the question of, do you know if in the past has the county ever won a case like this? How about that?
Well, I don't know. I haven't looked, but I would venture, I guess, that, like I said, if it meets our criteria, then that's what we're going to be held to as our own criteria. That's all I can tell you.
Are you aware of another case going through the process right now that the county's involved in with another municipality? I'm sorry. I digress.
Yeah.
So are
We're-
you
we're in
aware
a
of us
similar
getting
case.
any better lawyers? Is that a good?
I know we're in a similar case, the county itself, and it's just a property rights issue. I know that the county I will venture a guess, 99.9% of the time we're gonna lose these. So the thing, in my opinion, is to do as much as we can to control the development as much as we can and keep it within our hands. But if we kick it out of here, it completely gets out of our hands. Does that make sense? Is that
To a certain
accurate, Eric? Or?
Right. I mean, there's cases that we've been a part of in the past where I think the property owners around a particular area decided to fight a rezoning. The one that comes to mind is off of Waterloo and Coltrane Road. And so it was a mobile home park. It was a special use permit, but it was a mobile home park that was originally set up. And so the community that was directly west, which was in the city limits of Edmond, ended up going to court with the developer at that time. And so in that particular case, I guess you could say they were victorious to some degree because they got the zoning removed, of which is a special use permit, so they could no longer do mobile homes. But then the Applicant then came back years later and they've rezoned that to where they can do half-acre lots, and they're actually in the process of trying to move forward. So, sure, in that particular case, there was a trade-off. Maybe the property owners see that as a positive, but I can think of a couple other cases. One that was off of 206th and May, that was eventually annexed into the city limits of Oklahoma City, to where we, the planning commission, denied the zoning and the plat that went along with it. We went to court. Ultimately, we ended up losing, if you will, because what's there today is in the city of Oklahoma City. I think at that time, if I remember correctly, I think they were proposing 500 lots. Now that it's in the city of Oklahoma City today, I think you're in the neighborhood of 800 lots. So I think some people might consider that a loss, but they weren't happy. The folks in the county weren't happy at the time with the 500 lots. So you kind of pick and choose your battles. It may work out to some degree. There's other cases where it hadn't.
But to a certain degree, we're kind of putting the cart in front of the horse, because if this goes to FEMA and they can't do it and they deny everything, then it doesn't really matter what we say. And
Sure,
that's what the whole
sure.
point of the testing and all that is for. And I'm not saying we're flippant about our decision today, but I don't know that we need to overanalyze the possibilities of what could happen until we have two more, or another step that has to happen before we get to me, the critical point.
We
So,
just
okay,
can't get there without an approval
Right.
on this.
Right, no, I'm with you. So, but if you could stand back up just real quick. Is there any other questions for this gentleman? Okay, thank you. Just want to make sure we close that. Anybody here else to talk in favor of this project? Hearing and seeing none, is there anyone here who would like to talk against this project? Your name and address?
My name is Mark Knoll. I'm at 21553 Bellagio Drive in the Bellagio Addition in Edmond. Before I start, I'll kind of preface this a little bit. I'm in a kind of a unique position. The last 30 years, I've been an insurance agent who specializes in construction. So I make my living writing insurance and performance bonds for contractors throughout Oklahoma. Highway contractors, GC, trade, utility, and several guys that are out there working in developments just like this today, a couple of very large ones that probably several of you will be very familiar with. So I come at it from a little bit different perspective. I'm very pro-growth, pro-development. When I see construction projects, cones, construction congestion, I'm kind of happy because my guys are making money and I'm probably going to make some money too. So wanted to kind of get that out there. I'm not against development. I think it's good for Oklahoma. I think it's good for growth. But first one I want to focus on, we're talking about an area that's very prone to flood. If you look from 206th all the way to 220th, which is Coffee Creek, from Portland all the way to MacArthur, every time we get a heavy rain, it is a mess to get in and out of our neighborhood. We're going west, to go south, to go back to the east, to get to work. It's a mess to get our kids to school. So this area is very flood prone, and it's been a problem since we've been there and probably 100 years before we got there. So building this area is certainly a concern. As an insurance agent, I look at the people that are going to be purchasing these lots are going to face. I don't think any of you have had any reduction in your property insurance premiums, your homeowner premium. Oklahoma's leading the nation right now in the price of our homeowners insurance, believe it or not. So we are paying more than most anybody in the country for our homeowners insurance. These folks, if you're in the floodplain adjacent to it, I don't know how much they're going to have to bring in to get it out of it, but they're going to buy flood policies in addition to that. So they're going to be paying a whole lot more money. But if the drainage issues continue, they're building their personal property. Livelihoods are all going to be in jeopardy if they can't fix the drainage. I'll also add that so there's a good chance if it's one of my guys, I'm going to be writing the maintenance bonds for this development. Or let's just say it were mine. If this drainage issue is not fixed, they're going to go back to the subcontractor and say, hey, you didn't do this correctly. You need to fix it. I talked to my surety, and I represent a lot of sureties who write these bonds. What they say in that instance, if they can't get it fixed, they're probably just going to write a check and walk away. So it's going to be a problem because if they can't fix the drainage issues, we are going to have to step up and pay the money. Well, if this development is $2 million, $1.5 million, is that gonna be enough to solve the problem? We don't know. But the surety is just basically gonna throw their hands up and say, we're writing a check, we're out. So there's other things to think about other than just, putting this thing in. But in phase one, there are still homeowners in the neighborhood that are still having problems with their irrigation, problem with flooding. And now we've got this coming in. So we haven't taken care of everybody in phase one. And now we've got phase two coming in that we know is in a floodplain. So that's a real issue for us. And I provided pictures of some of the things that we've seen. Hay bales floating behind our house. My wife and I jokingly call the pasture behind us Lake Knoll when it rains because the whole thing looks like a lake. Looks like you could go out there and cast a line and fish. We have seen hay bales, I'm talking the big ones, not square ones we threw when we were kids, floating from all the way from behind my house all the way down to 206. So that's a lot of water because we are just off of Coffee Creek, maybe, I don't know, half a mile or less. So that's a lot of water moving from here to here. So I don't know. I am pro construction, but I don't know how in the world you're going to build this up and build enough drainage to get the water off of this. And a few other comments that the lots are similar in size, but many of these are much smaller than the lots that we personally are on right now. And a lot of the homeowners that I've talked to, including myself, were told that we would never have to worry about them building behind us because it's in a flood zone. There were brochures that were provided to some of the homeowners saying they wouldn't build behind it. Well, now they are. I'm not against them building anything. I just don't think that that particular area is necessarily going to be safe. And I just, for the life of me, as much as I love construction, I don't know how in the world you're going to design this to get rid of all the water. Water's got to go somewhere. So it's either going to go back down in there or it's going to start coming back into the neighborhood. So I'm not an engineer and I'm not going to play one on TV. I'm just saying, I see this as an issue. I'm on these sites at least once every week or two. I'm on a site where my guys are working in these developments. It's a very complicated project, cutting the roads in, doing the excavation, putting the water lines in, the utilities in. So it's complicated enough without trying to put the drainage issues on top of it. So that's why we just wanted to come in and show you what we see when we get a heavy rain. And it's on multiple occasions. It's not just a one-time thing. Anytime we get a heavy rain, we're dealing with this. So I just want you guys to be thinking about this when whether you approve or disapprove the lot.
Questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else who'd like to talk against this project?
In
If you name and address, please.
Lisa Noel, 21553 Bellagio Drive. The picture here, this took me 4 hours to get my kid. I couldn't even get my kid from school because it started raining, but they ended up canceling school. I'm sorry. Just the thought, like, and these houses, I mean, I'm okay if they like started with that top part and just kind of scoot down. There's just no way. It's just like scary. Just to see the force of the water. I had video of it. Taking those over 1,000-pound hay bales all the way down to Portland and Coffee Creek. And then you have to go all the way back down to Memorial and then back at MacArthur. And that's just been in the last, I did put all the dates that I could find quickly because I didn't have enough time to practice on all this. And as we're developing that area, we're getting more concrete, more driveways, more roofs. And and that there's no absorption. And just like if you get in a bathtub and it's full and you get in, it's gonna overflow. It has to go somewhere, and that's like the lowest point. On diagram, let's see, I'm sorry for being emotional. I just got back from South Carolina and I was in that hurricane. I'm sorry. a lot of this drainage comes from all the way up here in the Guthrie area, and it goes all the way over to Canadian County. So from Logan County all the way to Canadian County. I just couldn't find the middle map to connect it. I'm sorry. I really tried. But sometimes you can't access all the things you want. And this is actually a photo from my vehicle. This is actually on the fabulous bridge that, I don't know, did you all improve that? Like
Yes.
back in the day, probably 8 or 9 years ago. I cannot thank you enough for that bridge. That has
There's more
really saved some lives. And I would love it if you could make some more. But I know that's expensive. I can't even. I think somebody told me it ended up being like $10 million. Or close to it, or just under
Close to
that. And I can't even imagine now. I've probably doubled by now with everything that's going on.
Well, we got one that's very similar in the
Really?
area that's going in. That's
is it?
just to the east of Deer Creek High School. It will hook up Portland and traverse that area that's always flooded as well.
Okay, where's that again?
And that-
Portland and what?
Portland and Eric, there you go.
Who's that? I'm sorry.
I suddenly started looking for Eric. So,
For the sewer plant? Okay.
yeah, by the sewer plant,
Mhm.
it'll
Okay.
actually go over that. We'll start spanning that, so that road will also be
You
up
think
and out
that
of
will
the-
be passable?
Yep.
Okay. And then you think we can go north on Meridian by then?
Yep.
Okay. Because
And then we got more in the
sometimes that's a little
works,
crazy.
to
It gets
bring
scary
some of
out
the
there.
roads up, and get them up out of the floodplain as well. So that's something that I've committed to in the Deer Creek area is to get those roads up and out so people can move around. So,
Okay. And this one right here, you can't even see the fence.
yeah.
And this is actually 220th in Portland. And the hay bale takes down these fences because these hay bales are 1,000 pounds, and for the force of that water, I just worry about the kids in the playgrounds in that area. I mean, that's them all. These are a few of the dates that I was able to find. I have video footage. I have photos, anything you want. So please feel free to call me. And we actually made the national news as well. But I appreciate your time. And if you need any additional information or anything, please let me know. Angela, she submitted these. This is off of Paloma Drive, and the drainage still hasn't been corrected there. And I think they've been there for 7 years. So it's just, I already have some drainage issues just in the neighborhood and then as we expand more, the water's, I feel like it says it's a 100-year floodplain, but we've only been there 5 years and we've seen it 5 times, and that's just the pictures I could find. And it's so not a 100-year flood. It's like 5 years and, at least in 5 years. So
Yeah.
I don't know. So
Absolutely. We had
I don't know what to.
we had
it's
a
very
log
weird.
jam in Logan County that caused most of that and was a little over $500,000 to actually remove that log jam.
You didn't have a big bonfire?
They did. They did. And it was up that way instead of us.
I was like, you almost needed to have the Texas
That's-
Aggies come get that one for you, huh?
And that's more stuff that we're doing in that area to
Mhm.
address some of the flooding. Is a lot of the creeks and stuff haven't been maintained in the past
Oh, yeah.
by commissioners, and we're going through and clearing that stuff out so the water could actually flow and get off you guys
Yeah.
quicker. So
Yeah, but where is the lowest area? I feel like it's right there in that Portland Meridian. Did you have from the surveying companies, as somebody who lives there? Just curious.
that it's probably going to be closer to Portland in that area.
Okay,
than-
because that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Because you can see whenever you're going over that MacArthur Bridge, it's going northeast bound.
Yeah.
And then when you're over here, it's coming this way. And I feel like it all gathers just right there in Portland Coffee Creek. So it'll be interesting as this all develops and
Yeah.
comes to.
ODOT did not
Sweet.
do us any favors with raising Portland the way that they did without enough, in my opinion, enough flood control.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for all
Thank
your
you.
time.
Anybody else? Hearing and seeing none?
I have one more question.
Eric?
So with this FEMA study, are they going to analyze this floodplain north of Oklahoma County and south of Oklahoma County? In other words, the big picture of,
Yeah, so part of the process is, sure, they're gonna analyze in the area that they're directly in, but they have to go up and downstream of this location as well. Obviously, whatever they do is going to affect everything in
Right.
both directions. So absolutely, yes, they have to take all that into consideration. So it's just not that particular area. You have to look at everything. You see the pictures here. I know Commissioner Davidson is well aware of that. Like I said, 220th there, we've closed that multiple times. And so maybe that is the kind of a collection point in that area of the water. But whatever they decide to do, they're going to have to show that in their study of this is what we're doing. This is how it's going to affect up and downstream. So it's not just that area. It well beyond that.
And if we're being clear, Bellagio's not the source of the flooding. It's just in the path of when it rains of the water going up or down, left or right. It's not like it all lands in Bellagio and then goes out.
Right. So it's a culmination of creeks. Everything goes from southwest back to northeast out of the county.
Right.
And so on that area, you just have a culmination of creeks that come together, is what you have at the end of the day. And, like she stated, as you have more development that occurs into the city of Oklahoma City, if that's in Canadian County, or if that's in Oklahoma County, south in Oklahoma City, I mean, you've got to account for that water somewhere.
Right.
And so you're probably having more water going into these floodplains than there typically has been because a lot of that area is developed. Not only that, even these neighborhoods, you have to maintain these areas. So as this area floods multiple times over years and years and years, as that flood resides, you have silt that's deposited there. So you're also building up that land. And so each time you have a flood event, sure, it's going to be a little bit more worse than the previous one because no one is going out there and removing the silt that's been deposited. So you got to take all these things into account as time moves forward.
So Commissioner Vaughn was gonna put a lake on the east side of Portland for us. Until he
So-
gets the price
Right.
tag.
Well, no, there's actually some discussion about creating more of a kind of a string of them
Right.
to do flood mitigation. So some of that, those discussions are being had. Those things, the people that were blocking a lot of that development now see how they could benefit the entire area. So they're in
Right.
favor of it.
Yeah, that was something that was discussed during the construction of the MacArthur Bridge that she mentioned. At that point in time, that was one of the things that we were having many discussions about. Instead of putting millions of dollars into a structure, going out and acquiring different pieces of land and basically having compensatory storage in multiple locations up and down the floodplain there.
So, okay, I mean, we've spent 45 minutes on flood, so I will entertain a motion to approve or deny item number 9.
We're just kicking it to FEMA, so
Yeah.
I'd like to see what they can do with FEMA. I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Mr. Murray, Mr. DeFuria,
Yes.
Mr. Talbot,
Yes.
Ms. Patterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Davidson.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, item number 10, discussion and possible action to approve/deny a zoning change from R2 Rural Residential District to CG Commercial General District Z 2024-06.
Yes, this is an application that is located off of Southeast 29th and Henny Road. This is east of Henny Road and on the north side of Southeast 29th, maybe a little bit more than a quarter mile east of Henny Road. What the applicant is proposing, actually, you've seen this property before. So let me not get too far ahead of myself. You've actually seen this property before, not in regards to zoning, but you've seen it in regards to platting. It was recently platted to where property that you see highlighted is one parcel of that plat, and the the lot that is adjacent to it to the south and west there, the 2-acre lot is the other part of this plat that the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners approved and has since been filed. At this time, the property owner that owns both of these pieces of property, she's wanting to rezone the 5 acres there, or actually a little bit more than 5 acres, 5.7 acres there. They're wanting to rezone it to CG for commercial retail kind of retail shopping strip center, excuse me, on the particular piece of property. Just to kind of give you an idea of what's there in the area, you have some property that is adjacent to the property, subject property in question, that's zone industrial to the east and to the west. If you recall, the one that is to the west of this particular piece of property, I don't know if you can quite see it there underneath the zoning, but that's actually a personal storage facility that's being constructed there. And in the building that you see in that picture is actually phase one of that. So as this goes, they're basically going to have building and outside storage as you go north on that piece of property directly to the west. As you can see, there's a couple pieces of property that are zoned RM, which is multifamily. And then you have some, even as you go back towards the intersection, that are zoned commercial as well. This is just a bigger picture there of the area. Obviously, as you go south, you get back into the city limits of Oklahoma City. You also have some R2 and R1 adjacent neighborhoods that are out there in the area. Some of it has been developed, others have not at this point. But that just kind of gives you an idea of what you have out there. I would say this kind of area has become more commercialized over the years, if you will. Those PUDs that you see on the southwest corner and the northwest corner of the intersection, they have a commercial and a residential component to them. So the one on the southwest side has 4 lots of residential, and the corner itself has, I think, 2 or 3 acres that are going to be commercial. Then the PUD on the northwest corner, the back portion are very large lots of residential, but those smaller lots that you see up front are going to be commercial in nature. So I'm just trying to give you an idea of what's actually zoned out there now. I know as far as what's out there actually on the ground, there's quite a bit, but maybe not as much as there could be at this point. So she's just wanting to rezone her property for retail in particular at this point in time. If you have any particular questions of me, I'll be happy to answer them.
The commercial general doesn't like open up for nuclear waste facilities and all that nonsense, right?
No, commercial general, sure, it opens it up to a lot of activities, just like the industrial that it's next to it. So I would say the industrial, if you're trying to compare the two, the industrial allows more than what she's asking for in this particular case. But, sure, that opens it up to retail, that opens it up to offices, that opens it up to gas stations potentially, automotive shops, those things. So sure, there's more intensive stuff, but you obviously can see what's adjacent to her as far as the industrial. So in my opinion at least, I don't think it's that big of a reach.
And more tax dollars for the school district.
Sure, absolutely.
Any other questions for her? Anyone here like to talk in favor of this project?
The applicant is here.
So-
I don't know if she has anything. She is
So-
here.
Yeah, ditto. Hearings, is there anyone who wants to talk against this project? No, of course he doesn't.
He works here.
I know he does. Okay, we were obligated to, so hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve/deny item number 10.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Murray, Mr. DeFuria,
Yes.
Mr. Talbot,
Yes.
Ms. Patterson,
Yes.
and Mr. Davidson.
Yes.
Just put me. We said it at the same time, but I gotta be in the record somewhere. All right, we're gonna go back to item number 4, approval of minutes of the previous meeting. Everybody got a copy of the meeting? Is anybody, can I get can I get a new motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting?
Motion to approve.
Second, give that one to him. Yeah. Okay, roll call, Eric.
Yes, Mr. Murray, Mr. DeFuria, Mr. Talbot,
Yes.
Ms. Patterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Davidson.
Yeah. All right, item number 5, do we need to ask him to leave, or he can sit here while we talk about it?
He can sit there, he just can't vote.
Can't vote, okay. Discussion and possible action to approve / deny the replat of lots 7A, 7B, 8A, 8B, and 9 of Coffee Creek Farms, RE 2024-01. Eric?
Yes, what Mr. DeFuria is asking for is pretty straightforward. The plat obviously exists. Lot 7A, 7B, 8A, and 8B, he created quite some time ago with a plat. So all of this already exists. What he's asking for in this case is he's replatting this to where lot 7A, 7B, 8A, and 8B go from 2.5 acres to basically 2 acres. So he's shrinking those lots in size where that property that he is taking from those lots is going back to lot 9. So that lot is currently 5 acres. He would then be making that lot 7 acres in size. So it's really just the manipulation of lot lines, if you will, is what he's doing to make some lots smaller and some lots, one lot bigger.
And it keeps everything within the zoning.
As far as the zoning, yes. And I assume that's why all of these lots that are getting smaller are at that 2 acre threshold, because all of this property is zoned R2.
Any questions for Eric? Anyone here who wants to talk in favor of this project?
Well, I'd say that Eric did a good job.
Okay. All right, any questions for Mr. DeFurio? All right, anybody else in favor? Hearing and seeing none, is there anyone here who'd like to talk against this project? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve item number 5.
Motion to approve. Second.
And let me I'll entertain a motion to approve or deny item number 5.
Second.
Roll call, Eric.
Mr. Murray, Mr. DeFuria, you cannot vote. Mr. Talbot,
Yes.
Ms. Patterson, and Commissioner Davidson.
Yes.
All right, item number 11, discussion and possible action to receive the September 2024 fee fund and expense report. What's the good news, Eric?
So you'll see there, we're squeaking by, if you will. So we're not going gangbusters here, but we're squeaking by. So for the year so far, we're still $7,800 ahead.
So we're still on pace for a Christmas party, is that what you're saying?
I don't know if I'd go that far because we're only a few months into the year. We got to save some money to get all the way through.
All right, I entertain a motion to receive the fee fund report.
Motion to receive.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Murray, Mr. DeFuria.
Yes.
And Mr. Talbot.
Yes.
Ms. Patterson.
Yes.
Commissioner Davis.
Yes.
All right, item number 12, new business in accordance with the Open Meetings Act, section 311-.9. New business is defined as any matter not known about or which could not have reasonably been foreseen at the time of posting this agenda. Any new business, Derek?
No, sir.
All right, then I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So just for the record, I'd like to thank Mr. Miles for being here today.
And for the
Sorry, I
record,
was
we
late.
would have readjusted if we had to again, the agenda to get.
Somebody sent out a text message saying, please show up. We need your vote. I don't know who that was.
Okay, this is the longest I've had to wait for a motion to
Motion to
adjourn.
Well, you could just,
Roll call.
you don't have to have a motion.
Mr. Murray, Mr. DeFuria, Mr. Talbot,
Yes.
Ms. Patterson, Commissioner Davis.
You could stay then.
Motion clearly passes.
We